They say that when you buy an old house, you aren't just buying the wood and the bricks. You're buying every memory, every secret, and every shadow that ever lived there. I bought my place in rural Vermont 3 years ago. It was an isolated Victorian farmhouse surrounded by miles of overgrown cornfields. It was perfect for a writer like me, or so I thought. About 6 months in, I started noticing small things were off. A chair in the kitchen would be pulled out an inch further than I left it. The smell of old, cheap tobacco would occasionally waft through the hallway, even though I don't smoke. I blamed the age of the house. I told myself the floorboards were just settling. One night, around 2 a.m., I was in my office when I heard a heavy thud directly above my head. The attic. The only access to the attic was a small, heavy wooden hatch in the ceiling of my bedroom. I grabbed a flashlight and walked to my room. The hatch was slightly askew, just a crack of darkness showing. I pushed a chair under the hatch, climbed up, and shone the light inside. Nothing but dust and old insulation. But as I scanned the corner, I saw a small, makeshift bed made of old blankets and yellowed newspapers. And next to it was a pile of Polaroids. I reached out and grabbed one. It was a photo of me, sleeping in my bed, taken from the perspective of the attic hatch. My blood turned to ice. I didn't call out. I didn't wait. I scrambled down, locked my bedroom door, and called the police. They arrived 20 minutes later and searched every inch of that attic. They found the bed, they found the photos, but they found no one. The only other exit was a tiny window 20 feet above the ground, and it was painted shut from the outside. The police told me it was likely a squatter who fled when they heard me climbing up. They advised me to change the locks and install security cameras, which I did. I installed 4 high-def cameras covering every entrance and the attic hatch itself. For 2 weeks, there was nothing, just silence. On the 15th night, I was checking the live feed on my tablet before bed. The camera in the hallway showed the attic hatch slowly, silently opening. A pair of thin, pale hands reached down and gripped the edges. Then, a man lowered himself out. He was incredibly thin, wearing clothes that looked like they belonged in the 1950s. I stayed silent, watching the screen, ready to bolt. But the man didn't head for my bedroom. He walked to the front door, unlocked it, and invited someone else in. 3 more figures, all dressed in the same dated, dusty clothes, stepped into my house. They didn't look like squatters. They looked like a family returning home after a long trip. I watched them on the screen as they sat in my living room in total darkness. They weren't moving. They weren't talking. They were just sitting there, staring at the wall where my TV used to be. I realized then that they weren't looking for money. They were waiting for me to join them. I decided to make a run for it through the kitchen window. I climbed out, ran to my car, and drove to the police station again. When the officers returned with me, the house was once again empty. The front door was locked. The attic hatch was closed. But when they checked the security camera footage, the screen was just static. From the moment the hatch opened, the recording had been erased. The police thought I was playing a prank. They left, telling me to get some sleep. I stood in the middle of my living room, shaking. Then I noticed something on the coffee table. A single, fresh Polaroid. It showed me standing in the middle of the room, looking at the camera, with the 4 figures standing directly behind me. So close, their breath would have been on my neck. I didn't stay another minute. I left everything, my clothes, my computer, my books. I moved 3 states away and never looked back. I recently saw the house listed for sale again online. The description says, perfect for a quiet family. But the last photo in the gallery shows the attic hatch. And if you look closely at the darkness inside, you can see the reflection of a wide, unblinking eye.